So hello and welcome to the next session. This time we have Hanne from Thrive Themes here with us, which I'm particularly excited about because before I met her personally, I've already been a huge fan of her work and her marketing advice. And I have the great privilege that she became my friend in the last few years. And she's the person I always turn to when I need marketing and business advice. And so I think she's the exact right person for the summit to share how to build, develop, and grow your marketing team. Hanne, welcome.
Thank you, Viola. So excited to be here and to share some of the things I learned over the time.
Perfect. And so for everyone listening and watching, obviously me and my team were in the comments, so feel free to type away and get the conversation going with all the questions that you have related to building your marketing team. And with this, Hanne, I'll let you go into your presentation and I'll make it so that people can see your slides.
All right, perfect. So I'll be covering how to build, develop, and grow your marketing team. And just a little bit about me. So my name is Hanne Vervaeck. I'm COO at Thrive Themes. And at Thrive Themes, we develop WordPress themes and plugins to help solopreneurs build their online business. And I started out, so the company, just to give a little bit of background, Thrive Teams has been around for 7 to 8 years now, and I've been with the company for 6 years. And over time, I started as a marketing apprentice, I became head of marketing, now I'm COO. And so over time, I've hired a fair share of marketing people. And I think that it will be fun to share some of the things that I learned and also to tell you that story, how I started out as an apprentice. So what we'll be doing in this short presentation is we're going to see how we created a marketing team in just 3 months, and we actually did that twice. How you can, like, whether you should hire a marketing team or whether you should outsource, and how you can make that decision. Whether you should hire specialists or generalists, which is also one of the very important questions, especially starting out. Then how you can hire your first marketing person, what I think that person should be, and also where you can find them. And then how to develop the team members that you have, which is something that I'm really, really excited about. So if nothing else, I'm just here to share you my experience, my story, and the pitfalls along the way, so that hopefully you don't have to go through those when you hire your marketing team. So once upon a time, there was this group of weird people, and more specifically, there was a seriously overworked founder. So Shane Miller, co-founder of Thrive Themes, was doing all the marketing himself for about 2 years, managed to get the company up and running, and we were already doing multiple millions in ARR. So really exciting, but also really, really stressful. So he decided that he needed a marketing team and that he needed a team quickly. So that's where this idea of a marketing apprenticeship came in. And this little one is me in the back of the picture. So for 3 months, we went to Barcelona and did a 3-month intensive apprenticeship to hire this marketing team. So at that point, I was one of the apprentices. And the reason that this 3-month intensive was a really good idea, and why I think that maybe you don't want to do it this way in your company, but if you want to hire a lot of people quickly, this might be something to consider. It's a great way to infuse company culture, because for 3 months we were working with Shane. So at that point, the co-founder, the sole person doing marketing in the company. And so it made it really, really great to learn exactly how he thought about the products, how he thought about the company, and so on. So that company culture was really important. Then you also get to know the people that you hire. So for 3 months, we were actually living together. And especially after those 3 months, completely remote team, it was a really great way to get to know the people that you work with, and not just on a professional level, but also on a personal level. So the first apprenticeship, actually hired 3 out of the 5 people. So I was one of them. And then Dave, who's still with the company, who was also one of us. So out of the 3 people, 2 are still with the company 6 years later. And we did this another time around, so another 3 months for another hiring round. At that point, we hired 3 people and 2 of them are still with the company. So it's actually also a really great way to find good people. And it is a good way also to take young people who don't necessarily have that much experience, but who are super motivated, and train and develop them. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that this is the best method for anyone, but I wanted to tell you this quick story because it shows you a little bit how I got into the company, how I went from working as an apprentice for 3 months and then becoming head of marketing, doing one of these apprenticeships myself, and hiring marketing people that way. And of course, I've also done the more normal hiring road where you actually like put out an announcement and then try to find the right people. So it's a fun little story to give a little bit of background of the different things that we've done in the company in order to find good people. Now, let's have a little discussion about this hiring versus outsourcing. When you think about marketing, it can be super overwhelming because you have like content marketing, copywriting, paid advertising, SEO, conversion rate optimization, social media, PR, partnerships. If by now you're thinking like, oh my God, hiring for marketing is so overwhelming, how do I even pick? I want to start out with and maybe like a thought process on how to go about whether you hire and whether you outsource. And I think it's something that's not enough talked about, because if you ask people, then they will be like, oh, for sure, you need to hire this type of person internally. You need to hire for this type of marketing internally. And I don't think there is a one fit all answer. So I believe that you need to think about what your marketing DNA is. Now, if you have no idea what marketing DNA is, don't worry, it's because I invented it. But basically, there will be one area of marketing that either you tried and got some traction with, and so it became part of how your company operates. Or maybe there's something that you're just more drawn to and that you feel like that's something that you should keep doing, or you find it really important. So like I said, there will be probably one area of marketing that for your company is more interesting than other areas. And that's the marketing that you should not outsource. So for Thrive Teams, for example, this is our content marketing. From the very start, Shane started doing videos for the company and got initial traction with that, with his blog posts, with his videos. And so that is something that we always kept very close to our heart, let's say. And that is something that we would never, ever outsource, because it is so important to the DNA of the company. It is so much ingrained in the culture that this is something that we could not outsource. And for your company, this might be another area of marketing. So this might be social media, this might be paid advertising. Depending on what works for you, you might have a different DNA. And in my opinion, this, like I said, is what you want to keep in-house. And then the other areas of marketing are things that you could outsource. So for example, if like us, content marketing is really what you're striving for, then maybe your paid advertising can be outsourced, or your SEO can be outsourced to an agency. And then there's also the other way of thinking about this would be, what are the competences that we have in-house, or like what can I or the person who's hiring the marketing team, like what is something that you understand and that you could decide whether it's a good hire, which I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but that will also be a big part of, do you outsource or do you keep it in-house? Do you have that expertise? Can you already decide whether someone will be good at their job, yes or no? And we'll come back to that one in a little bit. Because should you hire a generalist first or a specialist first. So once you decide on that marketing DNA, now that you know that you have a content marketing DNA, for example, should you then just go out and find a really good content writer, or should you still try to find someone generalist? So for this, the way that I think about this is, if you have a hammer, everything will look like a nail. And in marketing, that's not necessarily a good thing. So you want to make sure that the person that you hire is not someone who only has a hammer, because you want to make sure that you don't miss out on opportunities, which is why I would go to introducing this idea of the T-shaped marketer, which is something that I first read about on the Buffer blog. And it just made a lot of sense. So it really stayed with me. But remember how I said, like, you have all these different areas of marketing and it can be super overwhelming. Well, you actually want to find someone who has a basic knowledge in each one of these areas. So if I look at myself, for example, I'm actually very much a generalist. So I know a bit about SEO, I know about content, I know about Facebook ads, I know about all of these different areas, but I wouldn't say that I'm the best at any of these. And if I had to choose, probably like the content marketing or the video marketing would be my area of expertise. But it is really helpful that the first person you hire is someone who can actually assess every one of these areas and either know whether it could be good for the company, so know whether there is an opportunity for the company to go there. And then also, if you decide either to hire someone internally to do that specifically, or if you decide to outsource it, that person needs to be able to know if the other ones are doing a good job. So first of all, you want someone who's able to quick start it. So you want someone who can set up the Facebook ads and see if there is some initial traction there. And then once there is that traction, once they threw some spaghetti at the wall and they're like, okay, yes, this actually works, can still decide whether you want to outsource that part or whether you want to keep it in-house and have someone who's purely doing Facebook ads. But you want to make sure that that first marketing hire is someone who would be able to overview that area and could grew possibly in like a manager role, even though when they just start out, you just want to make sure that they can quick start the different areas of marketing. So this might sound a little bit like a unicorn to find, but you'll see when we go into like who should your first hire be, that there is a very specific type of person that I think would be perfect for this role. So your first hire. Now that you know that you want someone to have a certain DNA, or at least to keep a certain DNA in-house, and you still want someone who has a T-shaped profile, who are you actually looking for? Well, in my opinion, you are looking for someone who can execute on your DNA. So even though you want someone who knows all the different areas of marketing, if you decide that Facebook ads is where you're going to put most of your eggs in the basket, if you think that that is the DNA of your company, then you want to make sure that you find someone who has affinity with Facebook ads, who knows how to do them, who might already have some experience in there. Or if you decide that social media and community is really where you shine, you want to make sure that you find a marketer, a T-shaped marketer, but where the vertical bar, yes, the vertical bar of the T goes into that social media and community aspect. And then, so like I said, the T-shaped, most importantly, you want to find someone who's passionate by marketing. And this is something I've seen the difference between people who are passionate about marketing and people who are purely doing marketing as a job. There's the marketing nerds. Like I'm gladly gonna count myself in that category. And then there's people doing marketing because maybe they studied marketing in university or something like that. And there's such a huge difference. So when you have that first hire, when you're looking at someone who could really help your company grow, then you want someone that in their free time, they are thinking about marketing. Under the shower, they are coming up with marketing ideas. And if that sounds completely crazy to you, it's because you're not a marketing nerd. any marketing nerd will know exactly what I'm talking about and will understand that that's a thing. During your hiring process, the way you can figure out if someone is really passionate by marketing or not is ask them which blogs they're reading, which books they are reading, who are they following online. Because ideally, you want someone who in their free time is gonna look up marketing ideas, is gonna read about marketing, is part of groups of marketers, right? So that then when they look around, someone who's really passionate by marketing has like this lens of looking at the world that is just completely different. Because you go to a restaurant and the first thing that you look at is like, oh, on this menu, they put this thing first, which is really smart because they're probably going to sell more. Like, it's just a way of looking at the world that's completely different. And that is what you are looking for. And then you also want to find someone who loves your product, especially as if you're first hiring. This is critical. And that's where can you look for someone? Where can you look for that first marketing hire? I would say go to your customer base first, because you might have someone who's passionate by marketing in your customer base. You might be surprised about that. And the advantage is that that person already loves your product. They are already convinced about the fact that you're solving a problem. They already know that you're better than the competition, and they will be able to communicate that much easier, that much faster than someone who first has to be convinced about the product, or even worse, and this is a mistake that I've made before, who doesn't really love your product. It's like, yeah, they kind of like it, but they don't really love it. And you will notice it in everything that they do, in the way they communicate, in the way they present, in the way they write emails, sales pages, and so on. You will notice the difference between someone who really loves your product and someone who's just like, oh yeah, I'm working for this company type situation. So once you've found people, the longer you can keep people on board, the better most of the time. Because if you found good people, you want to make sure that you help them, that you develop them, and that you keep them around so that they can continue growing the company. And so I remember when I first started out at Thrive Themes, Shane asked me like, hey, why did you leave your former job? And I told him like, well, I was getting bored. Like, that was one of the reasons. And he promised that I would never be bored, which is probably why I'm COO now, is because he just kept me occupied. But it's so important that once you have those people who love your product, who are passionate about it, who are passionate about marketing, about helping you grow the company, that you can keep them around. And most of the tips that I'll give here are actually not purely marketing. This is really for any growth-oriented individuals, which hopefully you'll have several of them in your company in the different areas. So first of all, a really easy one is just give unlimited Kindle books and audio subscription. We've been doing this for a long time now, and it costs anywhere between $0 and maybe $40 a month maximum. And it makes such a huge difference for people who are motivated to learn, to know that any book, no matter whether it's a biography of someone that they like, or whether it's an actual marketing book, they then just go ahead, buy it on Kindle, and the company will cover that. So it's a fairly small investment for the company, and it makes such a huge difference for someone who's growth oriented. Same with events. I love speaking at events, but that's not everyone's jam. But the reason that events are so interesting, even just going to events, is because once you're at an event, there's a certain atmosphere, right? There's people around, there's a buzz going on there, and you will learn things from the presenters, but you will learn at least as much from the people around. You might meet interesting partners. There's so much that goes on during an event that I would highly recommend sending your employees to different events. To give you an example, we send our documentation team to a documentation event. Yes, that's a thing that actually exists. And they came back with a whole bunch of ideas on how to optimize our documentation, how to make it better, how to track how they were doing. And they got way more motivated for their job also. So it's that idea of ownership, and events can really help with that. On the same note, anything like online courses or communities that they choose to be part of will translate positively for you, because if somebody decides that they want to be part of a community of marketers, for example, well, guess what? At that point, they, in their free time, they're in a Facebook group discussing strategies for new ads, or they're reading about some onboarding that some other SaaS company has done. So again, if the people in your team, if they want to be part of a community, if they want to learn something new, that is just amazing. And being very upfront about the fact that that is part of what they are allowed to do is, I think, a great way to develop your team. And then the last one that I think is really fun too is also get them to educate the rest of the company about what they're doing. So especially if maybe you hire just one marketing person, and so they're a little bit on their island. And especially if you have a SaaS company and you're fairly product oriented, they might seem a little bit like the alien in the room, right? Like, who's that person who's not just focused on features and bugs? And you want to make sure that there's a very clear communication about the value of the different teams. And for example, I noticed that our developers really love knowing what we have planned on the marketing side of things, because it shows them that that feature that they have been working on, that more people will see it, more people will enjoy it. And once they understand that, it makes that bridge between the different teams much easier. And so your marketing person is not just going to find himself on a little island. So those are some things that, in my opinion, are fairly easy to implement in any company. Like I said, these don't cost thousands of dollars, but they are so important to someone who is growth oriented. And in my opinion, those are the people that you want in your company. Those are the people that you want to help you grow, and that you want to hire for. So yeah, that was very quickly an overview of some of the things that we look for in people, some of the thoughts behind it, and some of the mistakes that we made. So I hope that made sense. And Viola, I'm giving this back to you if there are any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hanne. I really appreciate it. So I want to start on the hiring part, and especially the fact that you did 2 apprenticeship and then basically trained people up. And I'm curious, if you have someone coming on to team as an apprentice, there's probably a series of benefits that you can shape them to your marketing DNA. They maybe have a different salary expectation than someone who's been doing marketing for 10 years, etc. But how do you get started? What kind of skills do you train someone up? Are those craft related? Are they more soft skill? Do you expect them to train themselves up in marketing? How does that process look like from turning an apprentice into a full-blown marketing expert?
So I think for the apprenticeship, it is important that you have a teacher. So the advantage that happened at our company is Shane is a really good marketer, and so he could be the teacher for that first round of apprentices. And at that point, it was very much everyone was a generalist. So we started out with a small team, and everyone would be doing all of the things. And like I said, because the DNA of the company is very much teaching and content, that was also what the focus was mostly on. And then I think the other skill that you want to make sure that anyone in your marketing have is persuasive writing or some kind of copywriting to make sure that they can write landing pages and ads and emails and so on. I would not do an apprenticeship if you don't have anyone that can actually teach. Like that would probably be a fairly bad idea. At that point, it could be really interesting to get someone, like I said, who's super passionate about marketing. Maybe they have already, like they have their own website where they did some, like where they experimented with some marketing and so on. And then you can still get someone to either consult or coach. So someone who's much more senior that comes in and helps that person, coach. So I think that's probably, if as a co-founder you're like, or as a founder you're like, I'm 100% focused on product, I do not understand this marketing game, then you probably don't want to do an apprenticeship. Let's be honest. You want someone who has done it before, but still in that generalist T-shaped type of marketing person.
Yeah, that makes sense, because basically, I mean, you did the apprenticeship to multiply Shane essentially and pass on his knowledge and the things that he knows. And so someone who doesn't have a Shane in the team already, maybe they want to get that passionate T-shaped person first, and maybe then they want to run an apprenticeship to build out the team.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious. I mean, as you said, there's so many disciplines of marketing. There's so many things that we could be tracking, right? There's followers, there's traffic, there's leads, etc. But how do you actually hold your team accountable to marketing success? And what is even marketing success? And how do you set the ownership of your marketing team up so that they feel like they own this, they want to win this? And how do you know you're on right track?
Ooh, that's a difficult one, because I do think it's again, there's not like one real answer for that.
Right.
If also depending, if like I'm talking B2C, let's just be very clear. This is like B2C marketing where you don't have a sales team, in which case basically marketing is in charge of revenue, because the more people to come in, the more revenue it should be making. So I would track people on revenue, on profit, and then if you have like for the different disciplines, you will have different KPIs. So if you have someone that's focused more on paid advertising, you want to make sure that for the paid advertising you have KPIs, which are usually like either cost per lead or cost per acquisition. Right. For the SEO person, like it doesn't make sense to track your SEO person on revenue. Like that's too far removed. So you want to make sure that those people are probably like tracked on traffic. You want to make sure that your copywriter is tracked on conversions on the sales page. So I think there's always that idea, and this is a whole different discussion, so it might be a bit too long to go in now, but that idea of lead indicators and lag indicators. So you want to make sure that people can actually be in charge of what their KPIs are, that they have a direct impact of what their KPIs are, which is why, like I said, like for me, for an SEO, like that would be too far removed from revenue, because there are so many more steps in between, whereas, but if you have one person in charge of marketing, or you have your head of marketing that has a team, then the logical KPI would be revenue.
Nice. And can I ask the last question is like, what is some of the ways in which you educate your internal team, the developer, the product people about what marketing is doing? What do you do a weekly update, or how does it look like within Thrive Themes?
We have weekly traction meetings, so that is with all the managers, because now we do have managers and team leads and so on. So at that point, everyone knows what the different rocks are. So that are like the goals of the quarter for the different areas. So like our design team has goals, and our marketing team has goals, and so on. And of course, those are very closely linked with each other. And then we do a monthly overview, which is like a company overview. It's pre-recorded, it's recorded. It's a video that I'm doing where we talk about sales, about the different marketing initiatives that have been going on, the different features that we released. So that is more of like a what happened this month type of overview after everything happened. But during the year, or during the time that we're working on stuff, it's really that Monday meeting where everyone knows like, okay, this is what everyone is working on.
Yeah, that makes sense, because sometimes the front end, like marketing and sales, can be so disconnected from the back end, and you don't even know what customer success and product is really doing. And I think bringing everyone to the table on a weekly basis makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it is necessary, because it's like you don't work in a vacuum, right? Like it's your marketing team can't have a launch if the product isn't ready. And your support team should know that there's a launch going on, because if not, they don't know that it's going to be an influx in customers. And so it is like everything is interdependent, and everything is linked to each other. And so to me, it doesn't make sense to have any of the teams work independently. Like everyone from customer happiness to product team lead, like for us, we have this weekly call where it's so important to get everyone on the same page, and so that we also know if there's delays and stuff, like everyone can adapt to those too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which actually, this is good, because we're running out of time. But this makes me think. You have written a nice article about learnings growing a software company, which maybe people can check out. Which my final question would have been, where can people learn more about you and what you teach, or what's the best channel to follow Thrive Themes? Let us know.
So for Thrive Themes, just thrivethemes.com, check us out. If you want to learn more about online marketing and so on, then our YouTube channel is probably the best way to go. You might recognize this face. And and then if anyone has questions and want to follow me, then probably LinkedIn is the best place to go. So Hanne Vervaeck, I don't think there are that many people with that name. So
perfect. We'll make sure to also tag you, and then people can follow the tag. Thank you so much for coming on, Hanne. I really appreciate it. And for everyone else, thank you. And for everyone else, stay tuned for the next session, and we're gonna continue our deep dive